last night was not great, as the Panthers just absolutely walloped the Oilers 6-1. Actually cut that thing off. I think I did about 4-1 and moved on from that. But you also had some College World Series. Number one, we got the schedule for the weekend, and we'll talk about that. Coastal Carolina is going to set us up for starting a great, great Friday. But last night, it brings, I think, the age-old question. Are you going to root for the underdog? Or are you going to root for the big team? Murray State, the original number 4 seed in their regional, hits a go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, and they go on to beat Duke 5-4. This is, again, it becomes the 4th number 4 seed to advance to the College World Series.
Ever.
Yeah,
4th ever. I got to make sure that's clear. Not 4th this year, but 4th ever.
Oh, yeah, right. No, yeah. And we all know, if you follow college, 4 seed, you're like, well, the 4 seed in basketball is really good. We've seen the 10 seed in South Carolina advance. Well, remember, I think they were the 7 seed, but remember, the 4 seed is the lowest team in the 16 regionals that take place.
Let's play a quick game. Can you list where these schools are? Oral Roberts.
Oh, I'm going to Oklahoma.
Utah?
No, I know it's not Utah. I'm going to go Oklahoma on Oral Roberts.
Okay, that's one of the 4. Stony Brook.
Connecticut?
It's northeast.
Yeah.
I'll stick with Connecticut. I think she's right on that one.
Incorrect. I do know that one. That is in New York.
Okay.
Murray State.
Tennessee.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, Tennessee.
I have no idea. And this last one, Fresno State. It's not,
California.
Not a trick question like Oakland.
Yeah, California.
Okay, so
Fresno
really
State is in California.
And
those are the 4 schools that have advanced.
Oral Roberts is from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
So we were 3-1 on that. 3-1. But yeah, so are you going to pull? Are you pulling for the massive underdog? Coastal Carolina, you can go. Well, they were a national seed. They were a 13 national seed. Murray State was a 4 seed in our regional. They were not a national seed.
So Coastal's like a fake underdog?
Yeah.
And as Kevin Schnall, who's coming up later, will tell us and has told us, not a Cinderella story.
Not a Cinderella story. No, they aren't. I mean, they've won a national championship. Mm-hmm. They won it just under a decade ago in 2016. So we'll talk about that. Get you ready for that. Kevin Schnall set to join us at 8:30 this morning. Also, last night, turns out they can win a ball game. The Braves 7-1 over the Brewers. Chris Sale picks up the victory, and now 4-4 on the season. But more importantly, they snap that nasty, ugly losing streak that at some point the season's not young anymore.
I saw a statistic, little quip, anecdote, if you will. Braves hadn't won since it turned June.
Yeah, okay.
June 10th.
Oh, wait, is Murray? Oh, I got to look this back up.
It's June 10th. They play baseball a lot.
Yes.
So they haven't won since the calendar flipped over to June. 7 in a row they've lost. They've not been good for a while. And maybe we've been underselling this in Chop Talk.
We will get to that on Thursday. I got to make a correction. We were wrong.
Which one?
Murray State.
Where?
They are in Murray, Kentucky.
There you go.
2 for 2. We were 2 out of 2, 2 out of 4.
The big metropolis of Murray, Kentucky.
So I must be thinking, probably a Middle Tennessee State must be in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm. I
didn't have the state behind Murfreesboro, but I thought that
fighting Coach Stokes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So great start to the program. Our geography is off starting right away.
Just goes to show
School's out. We're not into geography right now.
Just goes to show you how obscure some of these 4 seeds are when you have Oral Roberts, Murray State, Stony Brook, Fresno State as the only other schools to have pulled off this feat that Murray State pulled last night.
So we'll get into all of that as we roll through the day, but let's hit our most important things of the day that involves the South Carolina defense.
Now on the early game, let's kick off the show with the MITs, the most important things on the game.
So we want to get into this a little bit. Greg McElroy, and we'll let you hear all the audio. Greg McElroy leaving South Carolina, Preston, off of his top 10 defenses entering 2025.
Bulletin board material?
Nah.
What's up, Greg? What you thinking? What's going on? Why aren't we in the top 10 of your meticulously well put together list of top 10 defenses in the in the nation. This was the nation. He was saying.
Right.
So it wasn't even in the SEC.
Right,
So
just
it wasn't the nation. Out of a lot of schools, 130,
yeah, it's 131, 132.
Yeah. But we're not in the top 10, Greg, and we want to know why.
I can explain that.
Okay.
And we'll get into that. But obviously, we want to talk some football here a little bit as the countdown rolls on to opening night or opening afternoon, 3 o'clock over in Atlanta, and the opening weekend. 82 days left until kickoff. 82 days left. So these are some of the nerdy summer discussions that you start to have. And we will analyze a lot of the Gamecock defense here because there's so many questions, Preston, for a defense that last year, I don't know if it was at about this time or if it was later this month. It's been almost 12 months when I think Nick Eamon-Worry hit us with the historical defense.
They started throwing some breadcrumbs out there, historical.
Donuts,
all those types of things. And we was like, all right, guys, chill out. We know you've been lifting weights and you've been looking in the mirrors and you're getting swole over the summer and you're running times. We get it, but relax. But little did we know.
We had, and not only that, but we got to admit they kind of evolved as the season went on. You can't say, or maybe it depends on how you want to look at it. Was Kentucky that bad offensively, Brock Vandagriff, who has basically been put into retirement now, or was that an exceptional defensive day? They would follow that up a few weeks later by there's a lot of things we can talk about in the LSU game. We can talk about refereeing. We can talk about missed field goals, missed opportunities, one of the very questionable calls later in the game that nullified a long pass down the field. But the defense also kind of broke down in that game and allowed Garrett Nussmeier, who we had called Sussmeier throughout the week, to make the plays. They didn't necessarily stop the run. If there was one thing South Carolina really could probably look back on from the season and say we blew that game, I actually think it would be the LSU game and not the Alabama game.
Okay. Because of the defense, the defense didn't hold up. And with the defense being the heartbeat of the team, you would want them to be able to step up and make the plays, and they weren't able to do that, especially with the quarterback going down. So, that makes a lot of sense. Really quick pin right here. And this is not going to get on our most important thing, so this is the only time I have a chance to mention it. But I think Kentucky's cooked. I saw this. I don't know if you saw this story, but the associate head coach, Vince Morrow, from Kentucky, has left Kentucky to be the general manager of Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wrap. And he's the guy who's responsible for the recruiting success that Kentucky has had, and he's going over to the rival. I mean, obviously there's an easy comparison between the old Brad Scott from South Carolina to Clemson. I guess we can make that relevant, and we probably won't ever have another chance to talk about this, maybe later when Kentucky is floundering in the stats, but this was interesting to me.
It does. I don't know whether I'm taking credit. When I say I'm taking credit, I'm going to say South Carolina taking credit. I don't know if I should say South Carolina are taking credit, but it's like with South Carolina coming back, South Carolina re-arriving, and now Shane Beamer flipping the script on this rivalry or this series. And it is a little bit to an extent. We don't like them. They don't seem to like us. Mark Stoops has made fun of stupid sunglasses and everything, and it doesn't seem like our two programs are overly friendly, but it feels like we just zoomed right past Kentucky. And with us zooming right past Kentucky, and Missouri for that matter also, we relegated Kentucky to the very back pack of the East, and then the SEC went, you know what? Let's go to a one big conference, and now everybody's kind of relegated Kentucky back to a spot they used to be.
Yeah, I don't consider Kentucky a peer school right now.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, South Carolina has now had two. Well, they had two hard-fought victories over Kentucky up in Lexington, and I believe that was 2022. 2023 here was obviously a really good game, and then 2024, South Carolina goes up there, and that was a game we had circled that I think we were all worried about, and that's the first time we said, oh, that defense, they might be really good.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that, though, this morning. That defense, we'll let you hear from Greg McElroy, and we'll break it down. And not only are we going to break it down, but when J.C. Sherbert joins us coming up in the next hour, we'll get his thoughts because you got to replace a second-round safety who probably should have been a first-round safety. You got to replace a linebacker who essentially came out of nowhere. Remember all the excitement when we got Demetrius Knight? Yeah, I don't either.
Guys, we're going to get a former quarterback from Charlotte.
I just remember he runs fast. That was like the thing about him. He runs fast. It was kind of as a way of washing over losing 2 4-stars, 2 guys that were big recruiting wins, and Stone Blanton and Grayson Pup Howard. It was like, yeah, they're kind of slow. This guy's fast, though. He's going to be fast. And we were like, all right, sure, fast linebacker, got it.
Unless you were really out there grinding tape, I don't believe you if you said, yeah, Demetrius Knight with the guy.
You got to replace him. You got to replace the Bronco Nagurski Award winner and Kyle Kennard. That right there alone is 3 spots that are going to be very difficult to replace. But we'll talk about this a lot this morning, and we'll discuss it with J.C. Sherbert. Also, when J.C. Sherbert joins us in about an hour, we'll talk some football recruiting as well. Anytime you want to be a part of the program and weigh in, 803-404-6100. That's how you can do so. But when we come back, we'll let you listen to a little bit of Greg McElroy. What did he have to say in regards to Clayton White, in regards to the interior of the defensive line, and on the senior defensive production that we were just mentioning that South Carolina lost? So we'll get into all of that and look at this South Carolina defense a little bit. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It is the early game.
Preston here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, it's no problem. They'll come out to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with the insurance company to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are. School, home, work, it does not matter. Absolute Glass will take care of it for you. Now, if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows or mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. Say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Starting off the morning with a couple accidents. St. Andrews Road at I-26. Also I-26 eastbound there at Sunset Boulevard. And I-26 eastbound at I-126. The right lane is blocked. So be careful there. Could be a little bit of standing water from some of the storms last night. Might see an isolated storm pop up later on this afternoon or maybe this evening. Today's high 86, 70 the overnight low. And then tomorrow, maybe some evening storms, a high of 90. Pretty much that pattern will continue into the weekend. Right now, though, 70 on 107.5 The Game.
I have in my honorable mention category is probably going to create a bit of a stir. I acknowledge this. Doesn't mean that they can't be great. I just don't know how they're going to be able to replace the amount of senior production that was lost off last year's team and at South Carolina.
That is the words of Greg McElroy. So he puts them in his honorable mention category.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
Well,
Greg.
they better take the challenge.
Exactly, Greg.
But he's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's as accurate as anybody out there. I'm not going to argue with him, but they better. I mean, you don't hear something and roll over and be like, "Well, you're right. We can't replace it." The guys are going to have to step up. The question is, what guys are going to have to step up? And it's going to start with a four-star. To me, with a four-star guy like Desmond Umizulu. Or you got to replace. Who is the most important to replace?
Now let's play a game, Bill. I like to get in the game. So there's guys that you need to replace. So you may not know who we need to replace. On each level, there's somebody very important. Let's start at the top. Let's start at the back of the end. Yeah, obviously you have Nick Emenwari, who was a second-round pick. Then you have their linebackers. You have Demetrius Knight, who was also a second-round pick. Mm-hmm. Then up front, you have three guys who were also drafted: Tonka Hemingway, T.J. Sanders, and Kyle Kennard. So if we're looking at that, looking at those three levels, in my mind, I think there's some valid replacements on the back end of Nick Emenwari. I think we might have somebody there for that in Jalen Kilgore. Maybe. In Brandon Cisse. Maybe. But they play a little bit of different positions.
Yeah.
It's these next two levels that I'm not sure if we're going to get that level of production as far as linebacker replacing Demetrius Knight and these three dudes up front making plays.
So let's start with that. Cisse, I mean, now you're talking about replacing a safety. It could be Jalen Kilgore. Wouldn't be Cisse, Judge Collier, or Vakari Swain. Those are right now your three defensive backs. Lewis Solomon has a chance to work his way in there. Miles Norwood. You're actually pretty loaded in the secondary in terms of cornerback position. That is a battle, and you know how it works, Preston. I would be prepared to maybe lose a guy or two, maybe even in the fall, when they look around and be like, as you said, when Torian Gray and Clayton White are first team. Whoa, slow down a second. Two. Hold on. And then threes. All right, go get them, young man. But they're going to have depth. They've got guys back there, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they navigate and it depends, again, if you want to go with Jalen Kilgore as your nickel, that's adding a sixth guy. So you got a legitimate three deep there at the cornerback nickel slash situation. Now, safety, Peyton Williams stepped in last year for DQ Smith in a game and played exceptionally well. So they're excited about him. David Boosie is a guy that I know that they're excited about and they really like back there at safety. Kendall Daniels is a freshman who's built very similar to Nick Emenwari, but you're right. That is probably the position back there that you're most scared of, because who do you want to step into that position? Or do you slide Jalen Kilgore back into that safety position and take one of those other five and put them? That would probably be the first step I would look at, but I'm not Clayton White and or Torian Gray.
Clayton has sort of mentioned that they want to keep Jalen at the nickel position. That's something that they want to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be able to do that, because the old adage holds true. When the defensive line messes up, it's a first down. When the free safety messes up, it's a touchdown. And so we don't know how many different touchdowns, how many different plays were avoided, not simply by plays that they made, but just simply by Nick Emenwari's presence back there. And it's nearly impossible to replace a second-round draft pick. Regardless of how good Peyton Williams is, regardless of how good David Boosie is, they could be very good. They could play up to their maximum level of potential. But this dude is a dude. And that is going to be difficult to replace. And I think that's what Greg McElroy is getting at here, is that all things could be in order. All things could be going great. It's still very hard to replace this level of NFL talent on any one defense.
The only thing I'll say, and if he's going to keep him at nickel, it becomes irrelevant. Jalen Kilgore is a guy we've seen already in mock drafts that has been up there around the end of the first round, beginning of the second round.
He's had first-round projections.
But as we said, and you just pointed out, if Clayton White wants to keep him there, then that's another thing. So then you move down. Now, really, here is, I think, the most difficult position to replace, because it's not just Demetrius Knight. We probably didn't give we laughed because Debo Williams was Mr. Professional. There was no smiling.
That's correct.
There was no joking around. As a matter of fact, I think he just gave you a stern look if you asked any kind of silly question. But you also have to replace Bam Martin Scott, who is a very important piece of that group. You lose 3 seniors who I think had probably a combined 20 years of experience. But you lose 3 guys. Now, this is where, Preston, I'm interested in your take, because you lose 3 guys that had proven experience. The guys behind them conceivably actually could be better. The problem is, at least as we sit here on June the 10th, we don't know if they're better. Fred Johnson, part of the Fred and Wendell group, now broken in half.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But Fred Johnson is a guy that they have raved about, that played a little more to the end of the year, and is a guy that they're very excited about. Sean Murphy is a transfer guy that originally started at Alabama, went to Florida State, was originally a very, very high recruit for whatever reason at 2 different elite schools, has not been able to make it work.
Here we go.
You knew I was getting. Yeah, I was trying to look if there was any other linebackers I could mention.
Let's do it. Here we go. Let's do it on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Justin Oak. I can't even get past Oak.
We're gonna get it.
But
we'll go with Justin O for now.
Justin O for now. Yeah, the linebacker out of Alabama who was a big time recruit, and this is a guy they're really excited about. And I think initially, this is the guy that they're hoping to pair with Fred Johnson, which, good or bad, gives you an extremely young linebacking group.
That's the key right there. Both of these dudes may be physically more impressive, may be able to exceed the previous linebacking core physically, but what Demetrius Knight did and what Debo did and what Bam Martin Scott did was they brought a level of leadership and brought a level of seniority and brought a level of knowledge of Clayton White's defense to that unit. And sometimes that trumps athletic ability, especially at the linebacker position. So these guys are going to have to grow up quick. They're going to have to learn how to diagnose plays in a very fast manner, and they're going to have to become more familiar with Clayton White's defense in a hurry.
Jaron Willis, also a part of that. He's a guy that was, again, a very high recruit who transferred from Ole Miss a couple years ago, and it would be his time now to step up and show something. Donovan Darden was a guy who shot up rankings. They may move him to edge, but he's a freshman, but he ended up being ranked very high in the final rankings from On3 and 24/7 Sports. Tayshawn Austin is another guy they recruited, A.J. Holloway, and then you got the guy from right here in town at Dutch Fork, Josh Smith. So bodies, lots of bodies, but as you just heard, a lot of really young ones. You go from one of the most experienced linebacking groups in the country to potentially one of the youngest when we're already highlighting Fred Johnson and Justin O, 2 guys who are sophomores, and then behind them I'm kind of talking about guys who are freshmen to go along with juniors and Sean Murphy and Jaron Willis. Let's get out to the phone lines. Joe wants to weigh in this morning. Joe, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Hey, man, this is my favorite time of the year. We can all be great right now, right, Bill? Right, Preston?
I think that's what I was just, yeah.
Yeah, so I look at the defensive line. A great defensive line allows the linebacker to roam. He allows the secondary to do things sometimes. It makes the secondary look good when you can get a pressure on the quarterback. Nick Emenwari is a unicorn, man. You know, he is a freak of nature. When the ball is snapped, it's all about those secondary guys being where they're supposed to be when the ball is in the air. But if the defensive line comes back this year just as good as they were or better, and I think it's possible because when Shane Beamer, he develops players better than anyone that I've seen since I've been watching Gamecock football. He's a great developer, and he has the guys in place. You can tell, guys. But Fred Johnson and that defensive line in the secondary, they're so disciplined. They're very disciplined. And I just look forward to that defensive line causing havoc and allowing the linebackers to roam in the secondary to pick off balls that shouldn't be thrown when the quarterback doesn't want to throw it, or when he wants to throw it, it's not there. So the defensive line, I think that it's a key. They need to be just as good as they were last year, and everybody else, it'll fall in place as long as the defensive line is doing their thing. But if the defensive line is getting pushed around, it's going to be a long season. Starts up front. You know it, Preston. Starts up front, man.
I like it.
But yeah, great show as usual, fellas. I love listening to you guys, man. TB and J, my favorite group, man. You guys have a great day, man. Let's go Gamecocks.
Appreciate it, Joe. Good to hear from you this morning. Hope you have a great day out there. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll get to some more Greg McElroy, what he talked about in particular with Clayton White, and we will get to what Greg McElroy talked about, specifically the interior of that defensive line. 803-404-6100. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder and First Palmetto Bank. First Palmetto Bank, locally owned and operated right here in the Midlands. So what that means for you, if you contact Jacob Crowder today, you can get quick and precise underwriting for any questions, decisions, or things that you need, such as if you're thinking about refinancing your home, maybe you're thinking about building a home, or maybe you're thinking about purchasing a brand new home. As we head into the back half of June, I know some things are on your mind for maybe what you want to do here at the back half of 2025. And the first call you need to make, if any of it has to do with refinancing, purchasing, or building, is the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder. So use this phone number and give him a phone call today, 803-719-1005. Again, that's 803-719-1005. Call and find out what options are available for you by calling Jacob Crowder today, 803-719-1005.
I-26 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard still working, an earlier accident there. Also, St. Andrews Road at I-26. And yeah, as we've mentioned, we're in a pattern now where we're going to be seeing chances for isolated storms pretty much every afternoon or evening for the next several days. 86 will be our high today with those isolated storms possible this afternoon, maybe this evening. Same for tomorrow, high of 90, and much of the same for Thursday. Also looking for a high of 90 right now, though. Currently 70 and overcast on 107.5 The Game.
.34 as we roll along on your Tuesday morning. Get up and get going. Get yourself out the house. Let's get into a Tuesday, and then let's maybe experience some thunderstorms here coming up later on as you heard Jen's weather report there. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in. Right now, we're talking about Greg McElroy discussing the South Carolina defense. And Preston and Jen, they woke up ready for, they woke up on fire. You guys are upset, it feels like. Chip on our shoulder.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
Why not?
He did not name South Carolina. Now, he did name him an honorable mention, I guess.
Yes.
Which I actually don't think he should have done that.
I guess now we have to take after, Hammer on Bill. Chip on our shoulder about that.
Yeah. Write that down. Put that on the board. Look, we just got done discussing the secondary. Now, Jen, I tell you what, this is going to be clip number 3. We talked about the secondary and the linebackers. This is clip number 3. But this is Greg McElroy, and I think Preston and what Joe, our caller, just said, it all starts up front. And let's hear Greg McElroy discussing the interior, not the edges, where you've got Dylan Stewart back, but the interior of the South Carolina defensive line, and here's what he discussed.
The main issue for me when evaluating where South Carolina was going to be is on the interior of their defensive line. That's the group that did not get nearly enough credit last year. All we wanted to do was talk about the edges, and rightfully so. Those two guys were incredible. But the interior presence of TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, DeAndre Jules, those guys now departing has left a pretty significant void of experience and disruption there at defensive tackle for South Carolina. Can they adequately replace some of those pieces on the interior? That might be the biggest question.
All right. This gets interesting again. South Carolina might have better players on the defensive line now. I know you people are going to say, well, wait a minute, TJ Sanders was, a third-round pick?
Fourth round
pick. Mm-hmm. Boogie Huntley didn't get drafted. Tonka Hemingway was, I believe, fifth round.
Correct.
And I say maybe, possibly, because Monkel Goodwin was an original 4-star recruit. He's a redshirt senior. He went to Alabama. Didn't quite work out there. He's now here. I thought he gave them some quality minutes last year. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy was one of the top 30 recruits in the country. A 5-star defensive lineman, went to Texas A&M. Didn't work out there, but he's now in the mix. Xavion Hardy was an originally 4-star recruit out of high school who was a 4-star recruit, one of the top defensive tackles in the country at junior college. Those 3 guys right there, when you compare and contrast, might actually be better. Might. They haven't proved it. There's nothing there in terms of proving how good you are. But that's going to be interesting, and it starts with this. I'm going to go to 2 other guys here in just a second. But it starts with the fact that, Preston, it comes down to Travian Robertson, and this is a year, I think he's a good coach, but this is a year, if that defensive line continues to get better throughout the year, we solidify him as, hey, you might be the next second coming of Brad Lawing.
Well, obviously he worked under the great Law Dog, learned from him under his tutelage, and he's much in the same category. You remember when he first took over, I told you those defensive linemen, they were going to be in for a little bit of a different
culture shock.
A little bit of a culture shock as far as the coaching style. And we've seen their play develop. I think Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders should send 10% of their NFL checks to Travian just as a tithe to say thank you, coach, because without him, I'm not sure they would have made it there based on the way they were playing previously. That being said, he has his job cut out for him again with this group because, yes, these guys were highly recruited. Yes, they were highly labeled. Yes, they have a bunch of stars behind the name. But to this point, they have not produced for whatever reasons. We're not sure why. There might be injury reasons, personnel reasons, whatever the case is. They have to go out there and get it done. What I am confident in is that their coaching is in place, that they will be coached to reach their highest level of potential. But as I said before, it's very difficult to just go out there and replace a 4th-round draft pick. These guys are not walking around everybody. Everybody's not valued that high. Everybody doesn't play that well, and everybody doesn't have those physical traits. So to replace 2 4th and 5th-round draft picks on the interior, plus guys who may or may not get a cup of coffee in the NFL, that's a tall task. And I think you're right in stating that we have to show and prove some of these things before we just grant them that they will be as good as they were last year.
Now, me personally, it's not that I didn't know this, but we've talked about this. One thing that stood out last year was the depth of the defensive line, because you also had a guy like DeAndre Jules who maybe if stays healthy, maybe he gets a 7th-round draft. Maybe he ends up being a 7th round. He did not get drafted. But you had a legitimate almost 3 deep last year. And 2 things occurred that, Preston, you talked about. One was coaching. When there was a time for our best defensive linemen to be in there, they were in there. But you also, that builds into number 2, they were able to be in there because we had so much, South Carolina had so much depth that they were able to rotate and give those guys opportunities to catch a breather so that when there was a key series or a key play, they were able to be fairly fresh.
Yeah, I can get really in the weeds about this, but that was one of the things that really frustrated me about the previous coaching staff is that we would have our 2nd and 3rd units on the field in times where we needed our best guys, and you did not see that a lot this year, and that's obviously due to coaching, conditioning, and like you said, the depth that allows everybody to play their part. The second group's role is to provide quality snaps, give the guys a break so that when it is time for the first group to come in, they are able to play their best, and they were able to do that last year. As you look at this line, I guess I'm assuming before camp, Monkel Goodwine and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy will be your first 2. Those guys behind it, Nick Barrett and Xavier Hardy, they have to fulfill that role. Now, they're not going into camp thinking that. They're going into camp thinking, I'm going to start, which is great. So there's open competition. They have to go out there and prove that and provide quality snaps as a unit.
And then behind them, you've got the transfer who was, I think he was in camp this past spring, and that is Devontae Miles. But again, maybe on the lighter side, 6'4", 280, and then they have signed another defensive tackle, Troy Pikes, a transfer who is listed at 6'5", 290. And then the one to watch is you've got Caleb Williams, the freshman defensive lineman, who's also 6'5", 90, but he is a freshman, so maybe you're not asking too much of him. So at least with the transfers, it looks like you've been able to get back to a 3 deep, 6 players to rotate with what I would assume Devontae Miles and Troy Pikes coming in as kind of your rotational players at that 3rd spot to give everybody a break.
Yeah, and so you need more and more players. And this is going to be on the coaching. It's going to be up to Clayton White. He knows, I'm sure he has his work cut out for him because when he walks out there on the first day and he doesn't see Tonka and he doesn't see TJ and he doesn't see Kyle Kennard.
Well, he did this already. Remember, he had to go through spring. Was like
looking around. He's like,
he just goes back and sits in his office for a minute, closes the door, and kind of weeps a little bit.
Some of those calls that were such good calls before, it might not be as good calls now because those dudes made plays.
Let's also hear from Greg Roy. He kind of weighs in on the X factor for South Carolina, and that is Clayton White, who obviously big raise, really enhanced his stock last year, was even in the mix a little bit for some head coaching jobs. Here's Greg McElroy on Clayton White.
Clayton White, their defensive coordinator, has done an amazing job. I think he does such a solid job of making sure that his defensive backs are extremely physical, his safeties are really versatile, and he allows those defensive linemen to pin their ears back and get after the opposing quarterback. He's been there for 5 years. He understands exactly where he is. He's constantly in the running for the Broyles Award, and rightfully so.
So kind of an X factor there. We'll talk more about this coming up in the next hour with J.C. Sherbert. But coming up, We bring back a oldie but a goodie segment, and thankfully it's not entirely focused on me. Our summer movie series, I'll let Preston explain when we come back, and we've got an oldie for you that you will remember and like. Take you down memory lane. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It's the early game.
it's easy when you play with a bunch of rejects and fat kids, Rodriguez.
Shut your mouth, Phillips.
What'd you say, crap face? I said you shouldn't even be allowed to touch a baseball. Except for Rodriguez, you're all an insult to the game. Come on! We'll take you on right here, right now! Come on! Yeah. Right now! Right now! We plan a real Diamond Porter. You ain't good enough to lick the dirt off our cleats. Watch it, jerk. Shut up, idiot. Moron! Scab eater. Butt sniffer. Pus licker. Fart smeller. You eat dog crap for breakfast, geek. You mix your weeds with your mama's toe jam. Yeah! You bob for apples in the toilet, and you like it. You play ball like a girl.
I'm not sure you could put that in most movies anymore now that I listened to all that, but that was The Sandlot if you're unfamiliar. But I have a feeling, Preston, anybody that is at least 30 years and older has participated in The Sandlot and seen it. Do you two know when that movie was released?
It was like 92-ish.
Very close. 93. Good call. Yes, and so for a lot of us growing up, Preston and Jen, this was a classic.
Oh, yeah. And even my son likes it, and he's not 30, but even he likes it.
Yes, absolutely a classic. And so this is going to be the introduction to our summer movie series for this year. We're going to be watching a movie. Now, we've done this before. There's been iterations of this, but this year the focus is going to be on a special period in cinema history. I believe it's from like 92 to 96, where they just made a bunch of kids' sports movies. We are going to be focusing this summer movie series strictly on kids' sports movies, i.e. The Sandlot, Mighty Ducks, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, all these great classics that many of you may have seen. And Bill, this really came to my mind because the other day you said that you hadn't sat down and watched a movie in a long time. And there's no better way to get into watching a movie than to rewatch a movie that you may have seen or you don't remember or one that you never seen. And also, this is an opportunity for us to gather our families around. They're all PG friendly. Now, what's going to be interesting is, like you said, what was considered appropriate at that time. We've definitely moved as a society. We've gotten way more conservative, and everybody's, oh, God. So that's going to be part of the conversation. And what we'll do is we'll introduce the movie on Monday. We'll talk about it throughout the week. And then on Friday, we'll review it. And hopefully you all that are listening out there, hopefully you'll take this opportunity to watch a movie with your family, because these are all really fun, really family-friendly movies. And obviously they're involved in sports. So this is going to take the summer movie series will strictly focus on kids' sports movies.
What do you two remember most about this movie? Before you rewatch it, what do you two remember most about this movie? Is it that scene?
That's a good scene.
Is it a different scene?
I'm going to need to rewatch it to come up with that.
Really?
I mean, there were a lot of scenes, but it's just the fun overall of the kids' baseball and the interactions and taking the one under his wing. I'd have to watch it to really pull out some scenes.
Okay. All right. You got one?
Yeah, I can recall several. This is something that whenever it's on, I'll watch it. But I think my favorite scene is the scene where they're at the pool.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to go with. I can't remember the kid's name. Squints, I believe. Fakes his own drowning to get a
spoiler alert.
Oh, listen.
Spoiler alert.
I know I've seen this. Granted, this is about 93 to 2000. My movie knowledge is a little bit stronger. I mentioned the other day, you said something, you made a comment about The Sixth Sense, and I realized I'd never seen The Sixth Sense, and I mentioned this in conversation with someone outside of the studio, and they looked at me, they were like, you haven't seen that? I was like, no, I hadn't seen that. I was like, but
spoiler alert.
If you've listened to this program, you know that my movie knowledge is severely lacking. That's why we did this. The last time we did this, I remember I had to watch, during COVID, I had to watch Shawshank Redemption, and that was the first time I'd seen that, and then I think Patrick Perrette made me watch Inception, I think. It was a movie that I could...
There were a couple older comedies from like the 80s that we were trying to get you to watch.
Ferris Bueller. You had me watching Ferris Bueller. So take in The Sandlot. Take in The Sandlot.
Watch it this week.
Relive it with the family.
We'll be back to review it on Friday, but we'll be reminding you this week. So this week's movie is The Sandlot. We'll be focused on kids' sports movies during the golden age of cinema.
Golden age. 803-404-6100. We got a poll question out on South Carolina's defensive replacements. We'll ask you about that. We'll talk with J.C. Sherbert. A fun second hour coming up. It is the early game.
You know, they say perfection is a journey. Well, that journey led us to a couple of renovations that we were doing and led us to Carolina Stone Craftsman to update a couple of bathrooms. We needed some countertops, and they were the place we were recommended to go. From customer idea to the fabrication to the installation, every step of the process was meticulous. And again, it started with their fabulous showroom. Got to tour that. Then we asked Rebecca and Ethan for help as far as what do we need? What's going to work the best for us in those bathrooms? And they were there to make the process fantastic. They also have an outdoor showroom that they're finishing up, all kinds of outdoor hardscapes that they can do. You would not believe the creativity and skill that they have in putting together things for your outside of your home as well. If you're in the market for countertops as well for your kitchen or bath, reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman. Just beyond Columbia in Chapin and beyond your expectations. I encourage you to visit them online, carolinastonecraftsman.com. Garner's Ferry Road near Congaree Road. An accident reported there, kind of right there at Fox Run Drive. Still working to clean things up, I-26 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard. And St. Andrews Road at I-26, you find an accident. 86 was isolated afternoon or evening storms today. 90 tomorrow, pretty much the same in the afternoon and evening, as well as Thursday, high of 90. Those afternoon or evening thunderstorms might be popping up and potential for some heavier storms at that. Right now, looking at overcast conditions, and it is 70 on 107.5 The Game.
7 a.m. on your Tuesday morning. Get up and get going. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen, as we get you into hour number 2 here. And we'll have J.C. Sherbert joining us coming up in about 15 minutes. And we'll talk more about the South Carolina defense. We have put out a poll. You can go to my Twitter account, at Will, W-I-L, Gunter, G-U-N-T-E-R, and vote on it. It's leaning slightly the way I thought it would. After about 10 minutes. The question is, which Gamecock defensive player are you most concerned about replacing in 2025? And the reason we bring this up, Greg McElroy on his podcast talking about the South Carolina defense, leading them outside of the top 10. I completely understand that. I think there's a lot to prove. I would like to see, I think it's going to be a year of improvement, but there are 3, in my opinion, and this is not taking anything away from Kyle Kennard. Maybe I should have gone with Kyle Kennard on here. But Tonka Hemingway, Demetrius Knight, Nick Eamon-Warry. Right now, after a couple votes in after the first 10 minutes, Eamon-Warry leading the way slightly, 38.5%, and Knight and Hemingway both at 30.8%.
It's all fair.
And real quick, the reason I put Hemingway in there, maybe I should have put Kyle Kennard, is because of his versatility, being able to play inside and outside.
And I think that leads to the conversation that we're having. Maybe you could have put Kyle Kennard, but maybe you could have put T.J. Sanders also.
I could have, yeah.
Right? So there's all these guys that were very good last year who, when Clayton White walks out for fall camp, they will not be there. And so the defensive staff is going to have to try and figure some things out. Eamon-Warry obviously was somebody who did so many unspoken things in the defense, whether it was lining up in different places, disappearing, being able to cover the top third, being able to come down and support the run, making beautiful plays in the flats on third down against Missouri's Luther Burden, make it 3rd and 11. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of guys that can be able to do this. So if you voted Nick Eamon-Warry, you're not wrong. But all of these are problems that Clayton White is having tough nights sleeping about right now, even though his pillow is filled with nice
cash.
Yeah, he has very nice pillows.
No, maybe not comfortable, though. I don't know if sleeping
He might not have cash in his pillows, but he's definitely got some really nice down feathers and silk. He has very nice pillows. I believe it's okay.
Miss Clayton White has gone out and checked the bank account. Be like, we can get the high end.
He has some nice pillows, I'm sure. But he's gonna have trouble sleeping on them because those guys are hard to replace.
And that's why you look at this. You look at the beginning of the season, and this is the next part. I think much like we saw, now the defense I think was ahead of what we thought last year when the season opened. But they grew throughout the season because honestly that defense in September, and they got ripped up a little bit by LSU and they got ripped up a little bit in that Mississippi game. By the time we circled back to the end of the season, they had really grown. And I feel like, Preston, the first 4 weeks, you get a nice combination of teams trying to recover, trying to build. You've got Virginia Tech, who the defense, again, I think Virginia Tech might actually give them a few problems defensively. South Carolina's not ready to come out of the gate. The South Carolina State offense that we've talked about, it's a pretty smart offense.
It's fun offense. I don't know if the quarterback will be back unless I don't know if he's going to be on the Pavia plan.
Okay.
But he was the driver of that offense last year. But we both came in here last year like, ooh.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I'm trying to remember who the offensive coordinator was that we looked up. I didn't do that during the break. But look, South Carolina defensively, there is talented players there. They should be able to handle it. Then maybe you get your toughest test of the young season because Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt come in here. Now, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt last year, remember, they were streaking. They were on fire, and South Carolina went into that game and just shut them down. Knocked Diego Pavia around. I don't want to say they injured him because he stayed in the game, but he was limping pretty badly by the end of the game. And South Carolina, truthfully, last year in that game, I don't want to say they put forth one of their most complete performances because I don't know. That's a whole discussion for a whole other time. But that particular game against Vanderbilt up there in Nashville, everybody was kind of worried. All right, Vanderbilt's already knocked off this team, that team, so forth and so on. And South Carolina went up there and just thumped them 28-7.
Domination. That was one of the games where it was one of the games where you started to see, like, hey, this defense has the capability of putting up zeros, of blanking teams, of doing all those things that really dominant defenses do, especially when Pavia had all the hype machine behind him. They pretty much stuffed him and Vandy in a locker.
Yeah, if you remember that game, Lenore Sellers, I don't know what game you'd say, well, that was his real true coming out party. I would say probably A&M, but the Vanderbilt game, Sellers was efficient, 14 of 20 for 238 and 2 touchdowns. Raheem Sanders had 15 carries for 128 yards. He also, I think, had a great catch and run in that game. Pavia was 16 of 31 for 166 yards. Didn't throw an interception, but didn't throw a touchdown either. And again, he had 13 rushing attempts for a net of 65 yards in that game. And South Carolina, again, kind of knocked him around pretty soundly. So that's your game 3 for that defense to grow. But as we know, it will be a night game. It will be a night game at Williams-Brice Stadium. And if South Carolina is doing what we expect, they should be 2-0. It should be in a phenomenal environment. The fireworks, the train. By the way, the train in EA Sports College Football 2026. But, yeah. Anyway. But with all that being said, the home crowd, I think the offense should be able to carry the defense a little bit.
They're going to have to, based on what we see. And this is just based on the replacement theory of these guys. I was just doing some quick math. I wasn't doing some quick math. I was using my machine to do some quick math because I'm not going to add that up. But out of those 3 guys, you're going to have 195 tackles that they all combined for. 88 for Nick, 82 for Demetrius, 25 for Tonka. It's a lot of production that hopefully is going to have to end up somewhere. But these guys were very, very instrumental in that defensive success.
And then obviously to wrap up the month of September, to wrap up, you get you get Missouri on the road. They'll have a new quarterback, but Eli Drinkowitz.
He's good.
Yeah, I was going to say probably the toughest coach.
I don't want to say it out loud, but
toughest coach in the first 5 games. And then you get Kentucky at home on the 27th.
Who, by the way, is on the ropes.
We talked about that a little bit, and go ahead and mention that again.
Yeah, so it's a really brief story that you probably won't pay a lot of attention to, but we were talking how we don't consider Kentucky a peer school anymore, and they just got dealt a tremendous blow. Kentucky associate head coach Vince Morrow is expected to become the general manager of Louisville. So to be clear, the guy who was the associate head coach, the guy who's the underboss of the Kentucky program, has left that program, has gone on to Louisville, their arch rival, their arch nemesis, to become the football's general manager. And why is that important? Because the general manager is the person that controls the purse strings. He's usually the person that's in control of recruiting. He's the person who knows all the ins and outs and the intricacies of how these teams are setting up their rosters. And so Kentucky might need to pay attention to this, because I wouldn't be surprised if you see some players making moves.
So there's really no such thing as a non-compete in this business.
You are correct. Also for all the coaches who are saying, "Oh, the transfer portal."
Yeah,
he made a move.
And in this day and age, you're right. This is huge. As a matter of fact, I think it's Mikael Skinner, who was the tight end from the Upstate who South Carolina recruited. I already saw him put out a tweet that had like crying emojis on it. Didn't specifically reference Vince Morrow, but you could kind of tell what it is. But you're right. Kentucky, that little run might be coming to a conclusion here very, very soon.
Good riddance.
So 803-404-6100. We'll talk more defense with J.C. Sherbert coming up. But again, you can go to my Twitter account at Will WIL Gunter GUNTER, and you can vote on that. And if you want to speak in and say Kyle Kennard, have a write-in vote, or T.J. Sanders, I totally understand that. Also, last night we closed out the brackets for the College World Series. Murray State, a 4 seed, one of becoming just the 4th 4 seed ever, knocks off Duke in the regional, and Murray State will head to the College World Series that will get going on Friday. And again, reminder, we got Kevin Schnall, Coastal Carolina baseball coach, coming up here in about an hour at 8:30. Coastal will lead things off against Arizona, Preston, 2 o'clock on Friday. But we now have the complete field, in Murray State, again, just the 4th 4 seed ever, gets into the College World Series.
Yeah, I saw something on. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I did a little bit of research on them. Their head coach, Dan Skirka. Did you know that he mows the grass?
Yeah, the players have to tarp the field. I read all that. The players have to tarp the field after all games.
I just love it that they've got like 800 seats in their stadium, and yeah, they do all the work. It's incredible.
Yes, that's what you have to do, and you have to find ways to move your money around as a head coach. And this is, to be honest, a lot of baseball coaches, this is what baseball coaches have done forever. They've always taken care of the fields. They've always been the ones lining the fields and taking. You never see a more meticulous person than a baseball coach who's dragging the field. He's like, oh, you got to drag the field. You got to make it counterclockwise or whatever nonsense they're into. So yeah, that's probably his woosah time when he just gets to mow the lawn.
That's what I was thinking. That's actually a very chill zen time for him.
That's his time.
One note, by the way, on Coastal Carolina, Arizona, will be a rematch of the 2016 College World Series, the College World Series 3-game final. And that game, Arizona won the first one 3-0 over Coastal. Coastal bounced back, winning the last two 5-4 and 4-3. And if I remember correctly, Jen, that was right about the week that I started work here at 107.5 The Game, and I think it became official about 2 weeks later. But I remember watching, there was a bunch of rain delays in it, and I believe I was doing an afternoon show and watching that here. So we'll talk with Kevin Schnall coming up. So that closes out the College World Series, and we'll get you more on what exactly is going on out there. And again, speak with Kevin Schnall coming up at 8:30 this morning. Also last night, the Florida Panthers, Preston watched, the Florida Panthers just stomped a mud hole in the Edmonton Oilers, 6-1 to go up 2-1 in that series.
I don't like Edmonton.
Do you now?
I don't like Edmonton.
Okay.
Get them out of here. They were down 4-1, and they were still trying to pick fights this whole game. And listen, if you're getting beat up 4-1 on the ice, you don't have any right to pick a fight. And all they kept doing was trying to just get in. I don't like them.
Play the game.
That's right. Listen, you already knew it was a blowout. I did not like the way they were approaching the game. To be clear, I have never seen Edmonton play hockey until last night. Did not like my first impression of them. Let's go Panthers.
Good. It's, you know what? I think that's a big part of sports watching sometimes is finding the villain, more so than finding your team.
I didn't like the way they were and I saw an Edmonton Oilers flop last night.
Okay.
And they say that's something that hockey's supposed to be the man sport. Clearly flopped.
Yeah.
To try and draw a penalty.
Flopping, taking over.
So they not only were they fighting, but they were flopping. I don't like that squad.
And especially all that padding, really, you're flopping.
Don't like that squad. Get them out of here. And Panthers.
We'll talk more about that. And one other thing from last night, the Braves win. The Braves win. 3 in the 5th, 2 in the 8th, 2 more in the 9th. They didn't have to use the bullpen all that much. 7-1 last night. Chris Sale, 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, struck out 11, walked 2. Probably his best performance of the year. Braves now 28-37 on the season, but they knock off the Brewers 7-1.
Knock off the Brewers, I guess.
Thump the Brewers. Let's take what we can get when we get it right now. I get it.
To be clear, it is June 10th, and this is the first time the Braves have won in the month of June.
Yeah, it was not going well.
They play baseball every day.
Not going well at all. So we had that Jen's Cubs last night in a great
12
series.
innings, man.
Did you see, by the way, and I want to bring this back up because I saw it last night. I think it was on Sunday, the series against the Tigers and how bad the umpiring was.
It was terrible.
And I forget which player got ejected for just turning around after a pitch and looking at the umpire saying, "You're having a bad day."
Yeah. That's gotten a lot of that whole series. The umping was not so great.
No, it was bad. The percentage for like game 1 on correct called strikes was basically the first ump was missing 8 out of 40 strikes. So for every 40 strikes that were thrown, he was missing 8 of them.
Ridiculous.
So, yeah, a lot going on there. 803-404-6100. We'll get back into South Carolina football. A big recruiting weekend last weekend. Another one coming up here very soon. We'll talk with J.C. Sherwood about some recruiting, and we'll get into some South Carolina defensive thoughts again. 803-404-6100. If you want to text in, you're listening to the early game.
It's Jennifer CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. The demolition, all that we had to do in the kitchen, totally took it down to the studs. Was not a fun time, but they sure made it a lot better at CHW Cabinetry. Great group of women who own that business, and they were very helpful in kind of dealing with my stress and helping us figure out what exactly we wanted in the kitchen. Got it all figured out, got that photorealistic rendering of the kitchen that showed us what the kitchen was going to look like before it was even done. And again, you take a picture, that makes it a lot easier to go pick out everything else that we needed to do to round out the kitchen. We've since used them for some cabinetry and some bathrooms and remodeling that we've done, considering doing some things in our closet because you can get some drawers put in there. You can get wire hanging racks replaced, all kinds of things you can do to make your home more functional in general. Visit them online, chwcabinetry.com. Call them at 803-520-6837. And, of course, tell them Jen Jensen sent you. CHW Cabinetry in Lexington. Passion from inspiration to installation. Garnish Ferry Road near Congaree Road, still working that earlier accident, as well as I-77 northbound at Shop Road. That would be exit 6 there on I-77 northbound. And yep, we're in that pattern now. Isolated storms in the afternoon and evenings every day are possibilities for them. High of 86 today, 90 tomorrow and Thursday with those afternoon and evening thunderstorms possibilities. And we'll kind of extend that into the weekend as well. And pretty much temperatures staying anywhere from about 88 to 91 for the next several days. Right now, it's overcast and 70 on 107.5 The Game.
7:20 on your Tuesday morning. Joined as always on a Tuesday morning now by JC Sherbert, thebigspur.com, Inside the Gamecocks podcast. And JC, welcome in. Hope you're doing well as we now move fully into recruiting season, in which South Carolina, fresh off of a very solid first two recruiting weekends.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a bunch of good groups. Have come in twice. A bunch of good groups. Come on, all right. Let me start this over. Sorry, I'm very distracted.
Bingo.
Yeah.
When we in sports, JC, when you was playing sports, what was the way that the coach said to start it over? Was it bingo? Run it again?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Run it back. Run it again.
Run it back.
Again.
Run it back.
Man, I mean, no. It's I had some. I record my podcast in the morning on Zoom, and it didn't launch today, and it runs up against this, and so I'm like, I was just staring at like a YouTube thumbnail, and I didn't expect. Usually Bill talks a little while, so I thought I had time, so I got caught with my pants down. My bad. That's totally on me, folks. Totally on me. No, the first weekend really was very good. One of the better ones we've seen through the years. A smaller group, obviously. That seems to be what they want to do this year, so they can give some personal attention. A lot of out-of-state guys. And then this past weekend, it was a lot of players coming in that I would call, leans to Carolina a little bit more heavy. And, of course, it paid off with the Harris twins committing on Saturday, the rare in-visit commitment, if you will. That doesn't happen too often these days. And then they made, some serious strides with some other guys, and then, of course, on Monday, K.J. Johnson, who visited the first weekend, commits to the Gamecocks. He's been a long-time lean to South Carolina, so that wasn't much of a surprise. But certainly, one of those longer cornerbacks like Torian Gray likes, and, another Alabama defensive back in the tradition of Captain Munnerlyn and Darian Stewart from a few years back. So good pickups for the Gamecocks. Landon Duckworth, the quarterback target, was in town this weekend. Had a fantastic visit. My crystal ball is on South Carolina for Landon Duckworth. Of course, he was committed very early. Noah Clark is a player everybody wants to know about because he's a D tackle, Preston. He's about 6'4", 330. So he's a big old boy from Durham, Jordan, and North Carolina. I believe South Carolina leads for him right now, heading out of the visit. And I also think, and kind of a surprise, they lead for an offensive tackle from Clarksville, Tennessee, named Kamari Blair, sort of a guy that popped on the radar this spring. That still happens. I wish it happened more often because there's a lot of good players that, really don't pop on the radar until spring before their senior year. 6'6", 280. The neat thing about him is the way he moves, and you can see the potential. He's a little raw. I think he's obviously, like most offensive linemen, will have to be developed. But they got all 22. I don't know if they had a drone or what, but they've got this all 22 film of him, and I'm like, man, I wish I could see this for everybody, because it really kind of shows you the athleticism and the upside. He and his mother really loved the visit, and that wasn't one heading in that I had on my bingo card as a player that could end up. There was a strong possibility to end up in the class. Okay, is that good enough after I false started?
There we go.
A great start right there. Let's go back. You mentioned the commit. Let's start with Aiden Harris there. Now, on his profile, it's got him listed at 6'4", 250. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of people are projecting him. He's either bigger than what his profile says, which is the rare occurrence, or he seems like more of an edge type guy. But I know you have been mentioning he seems more suited to play kind of the Tonka Hemingway role. So give us a little more detail on him.
Yeah, he's not an edge. He's a big, he's not. All right. So if Eric Norwood is kind of the body type, but taller. Some say Melvin Ingram body type wise. Don't get excited. That kind of thing. Because he's kind of broad shouldered and barrel chested. That kind of guy. So I don't think he's an edge. I think what's happened to him is what happens to a lot of guys. They go to a camp when they're freshmen, and they weigh 245, and it follows them around because nobody's got an updated weight on them. I think he's around 6'2.5", 265 right now. and really definitely an inside guy. Now, Tonka was the same size coming out of high school. He was 260 because he played 3 sports, and he would gain weight in football. And then basketball, a lot would come off, and then he'd go pitch for the baseball team, and then have to regain it again. And then Tonka ended up, obviously, okay. But he's got that quick twitch athleticism like Tonka has. And depending on how big he gets, he could be more, T.J. Sanders type, too, as far as that about 298, 300-pound interior guy. But he's the number 52 player in the country. He had offers from everybody. From Matthews, North Carolina, outside of Charlotte, Weddington High School. So Charlotte's certainly a place South Carolina could stand to recruit well every single year. It seems every cycle there's more and more players that come out of Charlotte. And it's 55 minutes away. So nice pickup getting him and his brother, who I also like as a prospect over the weekend.
And Andrew, the brother, projects more as an inside or outside linebacker?
Outside, good pass rusher. Just talking to people, and I'm not saying he's a carbon copy of these guys, but Bam Martin Scott, Jerron Willis, even Brad Johnson, some of the pass rushing linebackers Clayton White's had through the years. I love Andrew because he's the type of guy that you could see as a freshman because he's a big, strong kid and athletic and fast. Being on your special teams, blocking a punt, doing things like that early on in his career. And so I really like him. But, when you watch him on film, he's definitely a guy that gets after the passer. But kind of a blue-collar, go-all-out guy all the time. And certainly, rated 4 stars by 24/7 Sports Composite. So a lot of folks like him. So he's a good one. And in time, I think he could thrive in that kind of Bam Martin Scott role at Carolina.
Go ahead.
JC, you were making those comparisons, and you triggered a memory in me. I remember during my evaluation, I was evaluated as a poor man's Cecil Caldwell, and it really made me upset until I showed up on campus and I saw Cecil Caldwell, and I was like, maybe that might be right. They might have nailed that one. They might have nailed that one.
Cecil Caldwell is not a bad.
I would gladly be a poor man Cecil Caldwell. That dude was really good. So yeah, I hear you when you make these comparisons.
Yeah, I used to never do them because fundamentally every player is different, but fans enjoy them, and I think it helps. I think it helps to kind of give fans at least somewhat of a slight comparison. So I've started doing it.
Yeah, they were right. It was Cecil Caldwell was Dr. Pepper, and I was Dr. Thunder.
Yo, Dr. Thunder was awesome.
Dr. Thunder.
Dr. Thunder. I didn't expect that.
I didn't
Cheap
either.
and powerful.
I did not
Listen,
have that one on the list of things that I was going to hear this morning. So 803-404-6100. JC will come back. We have had a poll question out there this morning on the Gamecock defense. Who is the most important player to replace? I might have left one or two off, but we'll ask you that, and we'll talk about replacing some of these guys. Greg McElroy not having South Carolina in his top 10 defenses in the country starting right now. We'll talk about that when we come back and discuss more. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen. It's a Tuesday morning, a JC Sherbert Tuesday morning. It is the early game. Bill Gunner for Zerorez, carpet and air duct cleaning. Family's home for the summer. Now you got more traffic in the house. Probably means dirtier carpets, area rugs, tiles. Everything gets a little bit dirtier now, but not with Zerorez, especially right now during their summer sale. You give them a phone call. You mentioned me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game. Give them a phone call, 803-262-4020. And when you do mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, they will take 15% off all Cleaning Services. That's right. Carpets, air ducts, area rugs, and more. Just call and learn. 803-262-4020. As always, you can book online, ZeroResColumbia.com. If you got a business, you need to ask about the ZeroRes commercial cleaning plan as well. But again, give them a phone call and mention me, Bill Gunner at 1075 The Game. 803-262-4020, and they will take 15% off all cleaning services. ZeroRes. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
Earlier accidents have been cleared. We just have one to make you aware of, and that's Garner's Ferry Road near Congaree Road. And yep, that forecast, 86 today, isolated afternoon or evening thunderstorms. We're just going to kind of keep that a holding pattern as far as the weather is concerned. Those afternoon and evening storms, a possibility each and every day, really through the weekend, and we'll have highs around 90. Right now, it's 70 on the early game.
7:35 as we roll along here on your Tuesday morning, joined as always on a Tuesday by JC Sherbert of thebigspur.com. And again, we have talked a lot of South Carolina football this morning. Good morning to do it as we are just not far away, just 82 days away until South Carolina and Virginia Tech get things going in Atlanta. And one of the big parts of that game, JC, will be, all right, how does this defense recover? You lost several picks there that went in the top 5 rounds, and I've got a poll question out, and I feel kind of bad. I left Kyle Kennard off, but let's start with this. Who do you find is the most important player to replace? I went Nick Eamon-Warry, Demetrius Knight, and Tonka Hemingway. Certainly you could throw T.J. Sanders or Kyle Kennard in there, but who would you vote for in this particular poll?
Oh, I voted for Nick because you can't really replace a guy that's that freaky. I don't think you can replace a guy that's, a carbon copy of Tonka either because he's rare, but I think they have defensive linemen that can do other things. To me, T.J. Sanders is probably the one that's not on the list that I look at. And that's just from a football standpoint. Now, if you ask me about intangibles and leadership and stuff like that, because I think that they've maintained with the guys they've got, they still have, speed at linebacker. It's still a fast linebacking core. It's a big, longer linebacker core, too. But Demetrius Knight, was the leader of the team and obviously is an older guy, developed that role in the offseason. And, boy, he was outstanding playing-wise last year, made a lot of big plays. So you can make an argument for him and Nick and maybe Tonka too, since, Tonka was rare and also had a very, Tonka during his time here had a knack for big plays. He almost set the record for most touchdowns by maybe by a defensive player. Defensive lineman Melvin Ingram may have had it, but I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I don't even know if that's a statistical category they keep. But he made a lot of big plays, right, during his time at South Carolina. So, they're all hard to replace. But if I had to just pick one, just throwing that at me, I'd vote. And in the poll on Twitter, I voted for Nick. So I'll stick with that.
One of the things Preston and I, we went through the secondary, the linebacking group, and the defensive line. I at least felt that South Carolina, you're right about not being able to, there's no replacement. There's no physical replacement for Nick Eamon-Warry. But I feel like South Carolina, let's start in the secondary, is better suited in the secondary to replace Nick Eamon-Warry. You got a guy like Peyton Williams who has played a good bit and has played well when he has played. You got a guy like Jalen Kilgore who they probably want to keep at nickel. But they've got so many defensive backs when you talk about Judge Collier and Vakari Swain and Brandon Cisse. Lewis Solomon is there. Miles Norwood is there. That's 5 guys, and I might even be leaving one off. So would you agree with that at least the position who is deep enough and maybe most talented to replace that is to replace one of those 3 guys is the secondary?
Yeah, I think the secondary as a whole will be fine. Probably a strength of the team. You left off DQ Smith.
I'm sorry. He
started for 4 years. It's his 4th year starting. But I think with DQ, last year he kind of had the 2010 Stephon Gilmore thing happen to him, where sometimes it would be somebody else and he would be chasing and people would blame him for getting beat or whatever. And I'm not saying he's the best in pass coverage, but, what we didn't see out of DQ last year, and this happens to defensive backs sometimes, we didn't see the big plays. I mean, he's a guy that as a freshman scooped up a block punt and scored a touchdown his first game at Williams-Brice. We all remember the pick 6 and against Notre Dame. DQ, I think, and Jamie Bradford, who you have on Mondays, he picked O'Donnell Fortune as his breakout player in the secondary last year. He's going with DQ Smith this year. I thought he was right last year because O'Donnell had his best season as a Gamecock. So I think DQ could make some noise. As far as the other spot, Peyton Williams obviously is the front runner there. And then you've got a bunch of corner nickels. You got Jelon Kilgore, but then Brandon Cisse's there that could also play nickel. And then Vakari Swain's back and Judge Collier's back. And then Miles Norwood is in. And then you got Lewis Solomon who could play a lot of different places. Zabari Sandy, we never talk about, is back off of injury and had a good spring. Then David Bushey had a good spring back there at safety as well. Gerald Kilgore is still there. And then you got guys like Kendall Daniels in the freshman class. So they've got a lot of players back there this year, and it's collectively, I think it'll be fine. I mean, the big thing with replacing Nick, I think, not only is his range and ability to intercept the football and run fast in the secondary. He got good at baiting teams in. I mean, the LSU pick six that got called back, the notorious play. He basically, it's a check. He was saying this in an interview. The safeties have the ability to change the coverage like mid-play, apparently, and he changed it, and Nussmeier threw it right at him. And when you're older and you have those kind of gifts and you get comfortable with the scheme, those are the types of things that can happen. That's hard to replace. But, I do think the secondary as a whole will be fine.
Yeah, Nick had that the green light to be changing coverages like that. I don't think many other players on that team would have had that same green light from Clayton.
No, I mean,
Nobody else gets that.
I don't think I'd ever heard of that before.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're a second round. Yeah, when you're a second round pick, you can do things like that.
I've heard of option routes with receivers where they kind of, but I've never heard of that. But hey, it worked if it hadn't been for a pretty horrible call.
That's one of those. That's one of those things where you turn the film on. You say, guys, none of you all can do this. Only you.
Yeah. If you do it, you come stand next to me for several series.
Yes.
Real quick, your thoughts on these young linebackers and Justin O and Fred Johnson there as maybe the replacements for Debo Williams and Demetrius Knight.
Well, yeah. I did make a change after spring on my projected depth chart. It's just an opinion, folks. I'm not putting out the depth chart. It's just an opinion. Nobody get mad. Sean Murphy, the Florida State transfer who started his career at Alabama, a little older player. So he had a good spring, so I kind of had him opposite Fred Johnson in that linebacker role. Now I had Justin Okoronkwo previously, but it could go either way by the time this all gets kicked off. I love Fred Johnson. I think Fred Johnson is an upgrade, frankly. Nothing against Debo Williams or anybody else, but there aren't very many people that are 6'4" or 240 pounds that run 4.5 and will hit you like Fred Johnson. I mean, he's probably the freakiest linebacker, like physically. South Carolina's had since Jasper Brinkley, which was a long time ago. Four-star guy, obviously heavily recruited, Army All-American, that kind of thing. But I think it's his time. To get out there and be that dude in the defense. He played some last year and looked good doing it. So I think with linebackers, and Preston can tell you this, sometimes they look like they're slow or they're not moving or whatever because they're not comfortable. And you don't want to take what's called false steps because you go to the left and the ball's going to the right, you're going to be chasing, So that's what you look for with linebackers is false steps. So because they're young and inexperienced, because Justin Okoronkwo is a redshirt freshman as well. I think Murphy's a junior. Because of that, I think early on you may not be able to see that the group as a whole is going to be better. But as the season goes along, I expect the linebackers to be better, quite frankly, than last year with that three-man rotation. So, I know that may be bold to hear, but I love the group that they have. And then a true freshman guy like Donovan Darden, who's still that big, lengthy type of backer waiting in the wings. I think it has a chance to be a special group in time.
We will continue to discuss this as we move through the summer. But coming up next, JC, we've got some movie discussion for you. Not going to tell you what it is right now. We're just going to surprise you with it and get your thoughts on a particular movie, a particular more of a sports kids type movie from 1993. We'll ask you about that when we come back. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and it's that history, 30 years, that is your assurance that their professionals will provide the proper advice, service, and the results that you need for your facility. Now, whether it's your home or your business, whether you're here in Columbia, Aiken, or Augusta, whether you're maybe in Charleston or Greenville, Florence or Myrtle Beach, Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you, and they're ready to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You just got to give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Again, that is 803-356-1919, and you will speak off hours with a Mid-State Roofing on-call technician, during hours a Mid-State Roofing employee, and they'll help you with a maintenance contract. So again, make that phone call today, 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek.
It's easy when you play with a bunch of rejects and fat kids, Rodriguez.
Shut your mouth, Phillips.
What'd you say, crap face? I said you shouldn't even be allowed to touch a baseball. Except for Rodriguez, you're all an insult to the game. Come on! We'll take you on right here, right now! Come on! Yeah. Right now! We plan a real diamond, Porter. You ain't good enough to lick the dirt off our cleats. Watch it, jerk. Shut up, idiot. Moron! Scab eater. Butt sniffer. Pus licker. Fart smeller. You eat dog crap for breakfast, geek. You mix your weeds with your mama's toe jam. Yeah! You bob for apples in the toilet, and you like it. You play ball like a girl.
Name that movie, J.C. Sherbert.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
Oh, you couldn't hear it?
No, the commercial ended, and then I heard J.C. Sherbert.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that was The Sandlot, 1993. Your memories as we do our summer movie segments here. We'll get those cranked up on, we start with The Sandlot.
I like it. On JC and Morgan, we do this $5 a dimer thing. It's like if you've seen it 5 times, 10 times, whatever. It'd be below a $5 for me. I know that You're Killing Me Smalls thing, right? Isn't that from The Sandlot? I've repeated that a time or two in my life. But good movie, just not, like after the Bad News Bears, these kiddie baseball movies, I don't know. Nothing would top all the Bad News Bears for me. I'm weird. I know. I'm strange.
The original or the remake?
The original. Walter Matthau.
Killed it.
That crowd. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So I hate to be disappointing with The Sandlot, but that's just it's not really.
It's a good take.
One of those on my radar.
It's a hot take. Strong. What do you got?
It's a fair take. No, this is why we're doing this. We're gonna be doing a summer series of watching a bunch of these movies of these ilk during these time periods. We'll be watching some family-friendly kids sports movies, and we will be reviewing them to see whether or not they make the cut. I do like that idea of $5 a dime. Yeah, I definitely would put myself in the dime category of the amount of times I've seen Sandlot. But yes, we are open to discussion, as everything is, and I'm very, very glad to hear it. So you're saying the Sandlot does not make would not make a top 3 or a top 5 baseball movies for you, sir?
No. Yeah, and if you're just talking baseball movies in general, there was a post on X today, choose between 4. It was like Field of Dreams, The Natural, Major League, and maybe Bull Durham or something. But it was impossible to choose. But, yeah, I love baseball movies, but the Little League ones, I think it's because I saw the Bad News Bears when I was actually playing coach's pitch. So I could relate. But, yeah, it doesn't do much for me.
Okay.
In fact, I mentioned Mike Morgan. Mike Morgan got to call the Little League World Series a few years ago. I don't watch it because it's right before football in August, and I'm ready for football, and I just have no interest. And I'm a bad person for that, probably.
That's good. That's a great round of self-reflection, JC. We all have things we need to work on, and that's fine.
JC, we always appreciate a lot of great information on South Carolina today. A great take on The Sandlot. We'll play off of that in hour number 3, and we look forward to catching up next week.
Take care, fellas. See you.
Appreciate it, JC.
Always. JC Sherbert of Chief Sports Network there with Jamie Bradford and, of course, thebigspur.com. Head over there to follow all of the recruiting news that continues to come out over the next few weeks, and we'll catch up with him next Tuesday. Hour 3 on the way. Kevin Schnall, Coastal Carolina head baseball coach at 8:30.
I-20 westbound at Monticello Road, disabled vehicle might slow things down just a little bit. Fernandina Road at St. Andrews Road, an accident, and Clemson Road at Sparkleberry. So just a few areas there you might want to be a little mindful of. 86, that's going to be our high today. Some isolated storms in the afternoon and evening. And then tomorrow, looking for afternoon or evening storms possible. And a high of 90, much of the same for your Thursday. And as we mentioned before, this is a pattern we're going to stay in at least through the weekend. And it looks like even into the beginning of next week, where we're around 89, 90, 91, somewhere in there. And then we have those chances for those afternoon and evening storms to come up. Right now, it is 70 on the early game.
$8 a.m. as we get you up and get you going here on your Tuesday morning. Thank you to J.C. Sherbert for joining us as always. A lot of good football discussion there. It was, we creep a little bit closer to kickoff there against Virginia Tech. 82 days away, Preston, and a lot of the things that we've been talking about this morning, very important. How South Carolina, if this season, 7.5 is the over-under on the season win total, 7.5. If South Carolina is to surpass that, if they're to get to 9, maybe even 10, and be challenging for a college football playoff spot, this defense has to improve on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and they're going to have to improve starting from 0, much like the offense had to improve last year where they started off. If anybody remembers Old Dominion, anybody out there remember? We need to pull up that text chain from the Old Dominion game last year just to see what people thought and where the season ended. But I do feel like the defense will be on a similar trajectory this year, where they'll have to get better and better because, as we've mentioned, they have to replace a lot of production and leadership on this defense. Not saying that they can't. I think all the pieces are in place, but it is a tall task.
Yeah, not only the difference, if there's a difference, you'd like to think that the offense can uphold their end of the bargain early while the defense kind of adjusts and develops.
You hope.
You hope.
You hope.
Last year, we thought it was the other way around. The defense would have to kind of drag the offense through the month of September. And, the defense we knew, I don't think we thought it was going to be as good as it turned out, but we knew that there was enough there that the defense should be better and that they might have to win a few low-scoring games as the offense and Lenore Sellers grew into their job. And they did. Lenore Sellers grew into it, and obviously by the Oklahoma game, by mid or late October, they were rolling it at full speed.
Yeah, so the questions are going to have to be asked because there's still questions on offense, which we'll get to at some point later. But just for the defense, the players that are having to step up and play did not play as many snaps last year, did not produce as many as the guys. And so that's a question mark. Every good team has to reproduce players. It's just I would just hesitate in thinking that somebody's going to step right in and be a second-round draft pick like Nick Emenwari. Somebody's going to step right in and be, as you said, a Bronco Nagurski winner like Kyle Kennard. Or somebody's going to step in and be a second-round pick like Demetrius Knight. So those are things that were pleasant surprises last year, and I don't know if we can bank on those happening every single year.
We have a poll question out. You can go to my Twitter account, @Will, W-I-L, Gunter, G-U-N-T-E-R. Which Gamecock defensive player are you most concerned about replacing in 2025? Not really surprised by this. Maybe a little more surprised by how close it is, but Nick Emenwari leads the way at 45.9% of the vote. Demetrius Knight at 37.8% of the vote, and Tonka Hemingway at 16.2% of the vote. Now, again, let me repeat this. I would probably go Demetrius Knight. I would probably go Demetrius Knight if I was picking, followed by Tonka Hemingway and Nick Emanwari third. And the reason I say that is because with Demetrius Knight, he just, as JC kind of alluded to, and as we joked about, the old man of the group, go to football practice, stop by Lowe's, pick up some paint supplies or something, and then going home. He really took over a leadership role of the defense. Nick Emanwari was the best player of the defense, but here's why I would actually be more concerned. I don't know how that linebacking group is going to play out. And one of the reasons they were so good last year was the depth up front and the interior and the way those linebackers played. It felt like Debo Williams had been around here forever, too, but Demetrius Knight. If I'm picking a second toughest player to pick, it is Tonka Hemingway, because you hope these defensive linemen are good. You hope. On paper, in terms of recruiting, they were supposed to be really good. But I don't know. And I don't, Travion Robertson he's got a tall task. He's got to have them ready. Plus, they had a lot of depth last year. You had 4 really good defensive tackles. 2 of them didn't get drafted, DeAndre Jules and Boogie Huntley. 2 of them got drafted fairly highly in T.J. Sanders and Tonka Hemingway. I think that's actually might be, and I would almost lean maybe Hemingway's the toughest person, but also he was so versatile. That he could play outside and give you a bigger edge. He could play inside. He could kind of take snaps away from Kyle Kennard or Dylan Stewart to give them a little space. I do think the secondary is in the best spot to replace Nick Emanwari.
Just based on numbers and depth?
Based on Peyton Williams has shown us that he's a good player, and as we said, he's probably the inside track guy. Obviously, he's not physically going to be what nobody's going to be. Kendall Daniels Jr., who's a freshman, physically is that guy, 6'4", 225. He's in the Nick Emanwari mold, but he's a freshman, and you're hoping he doesn't have to step in and be that guy. Peyton Williams has shown he can do it. So in terms of replacement, I think Nick Emanwari might actually be third on my list. I would probably go Demetrius Knight because, again, you're asking Fred Johnson to kind of be that guy, Sean Murphy, and we get leery about transfers, especially when they've transferred twice from elite programs too.
You start getting you have to check their passport, right? Because how many times have you gone through this situation, right? Why did things happen? And there are various of circumstances. Could have been injuries. There could have been situations with coaches that you didn't work. Could have been invited. It could be anything. But when somebody has done this a couple of times, just like any other, if we're talking about employment and jobs, okay, why do you have 5 different places of employment in the last year or so? Right. What's going on here? And you start wondering about those things. So yes, they are highly recruited, very physically skilled. But the thing you talked about, Demetrius Knight, which something that got lost last year, we didn't talk about a lot, and it was a big deal prior to the season. Demetrius Knight was the green dot guy.
Very true.
Nobody talked about that all year. That's a good point. Right? But he was the guy, if you don't remember, the green dot was a big deal. They finally had defensive communication. He was the guy that was signaling the defense, getting everything together. So not just on the leadership aspect, but the very technical aspect of calling the defense and getting people lined up. That is something that you can teach, something that people can grow into, obviously, but to have that there is one less thing that Clayton White had to worry about.
And again, a lot of this is senior, obviously, Emanwari Jr., but this is Greg McElroy. This is why we started on it, talking about the South Carolina senior defensive production that's lost. And you just mentioned it. It's not just that you lost some guys. You lost older player like Demetrius Knight. Some of these guys were not just 22-year-old seniors. They were up there in age. Here's Greg McElroy talking about the South Carolina senior defensive production that's been lost.
I have in my honorable mention category is probably going to create a bit of a stir. I acknowledge this. Doesn't mean that they can't be great. I just don't know how they're going to be able to replace the amount of senior production that was lost off last year's team and at South Carolina.
And he's got a legitimate point. I wonder, by the way, that's the first time I caught something he said at the very beginning. He said it's going to, I think he said controversial, or he said something as it pertained to what people are going to think. And I think he meant that South Carolina's in the honorable mention category, that people would be surprised he's got South Carolina in the honorable mention category and not in the top 10.
Yes, it was South Carolina and Nebraska in his honorable mention. So I'm not sure.
Nebraska.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, everybody knows they moved Marcus Satterfield over to be a defensive analyst. That can't go wrong.
We're forever tethered to Nebraska. But yes, the defensive senior production is something that the coaches are going to have to deal with, because as the seniors, you just forget the things that you don't have to coach with them. And so they have to go back with these younger players and have to think, oh, yeah, this is where you line up here. oh, we don't do that anymore. We do that here. Where with seniors who already have the basics taken care of, you can start moving to more advanced concepts. You can start implementing more of your exotic schemes. You can start doing some more things. I would look for this defense this year to be a lot more basic at the beginning of the year as they grow into their positions of their plan.
I don't know if this is a sarcastic tweet. I don't know how to read this tweet, but I think
they didn't put their sarcasm front on.
Did not come on. So I'm going to read you the tweet, and then I feel like we might have to go back into football 101 for just a minute and remind everybody what the green dot helmet is. If you don't know, I don't know, but the text says green dot. That's what my helmet was that was pumped up with a hand air pump. Green dot meant for the big head people. Red dots were for the normal head people. So I'll let you address that again.
Facts. That's true. That's true. They don't use air pumps for helmets anymore. We've advanced technologically, but you, sir, or woman, are correct. But last year was the big deal everybody talked about preseason, is that there was going to be allowed to have defensive communication where Clayton White could call in. Instead of using signals, they could verbally give the call to one specific player on the defense who was determined to be the green dot guy.
Had the green dot on the back of the helmet.
He had the green dot on the back of his helmet. He was the one who was in verbal communication with the coaching staff. And it worked really well because we didn't talk about it throughout the year.
Right.
And so it ended up being less of a big deal than it was, but that was a part of a big deal. And Demetrius Knight was that guy for the defense last year.
So, I'm not sure if that was a sarcastic tweet, we were just laughing, or if we had to re-explain that. But, yes, that's a good point about him being the leader of the defense. And I guess another reason I would make him kind of the guy that I think is most concerning to replace. And, again, the only reason I don't have Eamon up there is I do think there are guys that have proven themselves that will step in. That doesn't mean they're going to be Nick Ebenwari. As you said, as JC said, you really honestly don't replace a Nick Ebenwari. You just – that's not just nobody that freak of nature, nobody that developed the way he did and had the year he did. But I feel like there are guys that have shown they can do it. I don't know if I can say the same. Actually, I don't feel I can say the same for linebacker or defensive tackle or how Hemingway played. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll get into a little bit of College World Series. We'll give you the breakdown on the schedule. Murray State. I tell you what, Jen, one of us needs to retweet this. I saw it come up of the stadium of Murray State. It says it holds 800 people. Either that is, there's two ways to look at it.
It's Reagan Field.
It either does not hold 200 people or it holds a lot more. Excuse me, it does either not hold 800 people, 800, not 200. It either does not hold 800 or it could hold far more. I have to try and get a retweet here and let you decide because it feels like there's a lot of area to watch a baseball game here or there's no area. I'll explain when we come back, and we'll talk about the College World Series. Kevin Schnall due up at 8:30 this morning. You're listening to the early game.
Hey, y'all, it's Preston Thorne from Midlands Landscaping and Lawns. And for over 30 years, proud owner Paul Ramenstein has served at Midlands Landscape and Lawns, has been helping families enjoy their yards without worrying about the fire ants. Because, yes, it is fire ant season. It may be talking season, but it's also fire ant season. So if you've got mounds popping up in your lawn, you don't want them around your kids' play area. You don't want them around your pets. Give them a call. Their treatment program is fast, effective, and it's safe for your family and your pets. Best of all, it's guaranteed to keep fire ants away for a full year. Don't wait until someone gets bit. Let's take care of those fire ants now before they take over. Call Midlands Landscaping and Lawns or visit them at midlandslandscape.com or give them a call at 803-356-8080. That's 803-356-8080.
Clemson Road at Sparkleberry Lane, we have a report of an accident there. Also, still working an earlier slowdown there at Fernandina Road at St. Andrews Road. Looking for some late afternoon isolated storms, and that could go into this evening. 86 for the high, 90 with the same forecast tomorrow and Thursday. Right now, still overcast. It is 71 on 107.5 The Game.
One, 2 outs, the 2-2. Ground ball to first. Ball game. Murray State has done it. Upset in Durham. The Racers race on to Omaha.
That was the call last night as Murray State became the number 4 seed to advance to the College World Series as they take down Duke in the Durham Super Regional. This also kind of brings me back to, and I'm not going to go down the path, but why I'm now going to start banging a drum later on. And boy, if South Carolina ever gets to this situation, I'm really going to bang the drum. But why I think that they should reseed, no offense to Murray State, that's a great story, but why I think they should reseed the Super Regionals after the regionals. I don't think it was fair that Tennessee was a national seed and had to go to Arkansas. Tennessee, based on how good their season was, the strength of conference, whatever it is that they used, had to be the 14th seed and go play a much tougher regional against Arkansas than Murray State did going to play Duke. That's going to become one of my things, and if South Carolina can ever get back to that point, I'll really bang the drum. I don't think it's fair that Coastal had to go to Auburn. Coastal was a national seed, and that Coastal had a more difficult super regional despite being deemed a better team than Murray State. People say, well, it's the brackets. Well, yeah, they're predetermined brackets, but Murray State didn't earn that right. They earned it by winning the regional, but what did they do? Well, how did they get an easier super regional than Coastal or Tennessee did?
That makes I hear you. I hear you. So you're just gonna have to change.org. Let's get a petition going.
Thankfully, I've got a year to continue to flesh out this argument. But Murray State wins last night. But it is a really cool story, and I think it really truly brings the question of who do you root for? The big bad SEC say favorite, or the little guy in Murray State when you get to the College World Series?
Well, this is the interesting thing about the College World Series this year, and as I'm looking, this is from Chris Vanini. He said there's 8 men's College World Series teams from 7 different conferences. So the SEC has LSU and Arkansas. The ACC has Louisville. Big 12 has Arizona, which that still takes some time to get used to. The Big 10 has UCLA, which I'm still getting used to. The Pac-12/Independent has Oregon State. The Sun Belt obviously has Coastal. And the MVC,
the Mountain Valley Conference.
The big, strong Mountain Valley Conference has the Murray State Racers representing. So you have a variance of representation from across the college landscape.
Well, so Murray State wins last night. Now, we brought it up. You can go and check it out. Johnny Reagan Field. I've been trying to look at pictures of this. Jen says it holds 800 fans. It looks like Lexington High School to me. There is kind of an area behind home plate that is that looks like it's seated. To its right, it appears there's kind of a grassy berm over there that's built into sections that maybe you could bring your own tailgating chair and sit there and take in the game. And then it looks like fans could pretty much just encircle the field, which would mean...
That's what I'm saying.
And so a lot more than 800.
Raucous environment, too.
Very true.
See, people are standing around.
They aren't going to be phased one bit by the crowd at the College World Series.
Exactly, yeah. So that 800 is a conservative number. And also, Bill, it's not the amount, it's the might of the crowd. So if the Racers are in full force, which, hey, Murray State Racers, I don't think this is ever going to happen again. You might want to go to Omaha.
Enjoy it. And they will open with UCLA, but let's go with the Friday games. 2 o'clock Eastern time. So if you look at a bracket, it's 1 o'clock Central time because that's where they're playing out in Central time zone. But it's 2 o'clock Eastern time. And you will have Coastal Carolina and Arizona, a rematch of the 2016 National Championship Series in which Coastal fell behind 1-0 in that, only to win the next 2 games and win their only national championship in college baseball. But again, it was a phenomenal run from them. Right now, Coastal 53-11. They'll take on Arizona 44-19 at 2 o'clock.
You said it's a repeat of the
2016 National Championship Series. They faced each other in a 3-game series, and winner take all 3-game series.
I'm definitely not pretending to know anything about Arizona.
No, I'm not either.
I'm fully behind Coastal. I'm really excited to see that. I will be locked in and watch that.
I would say just take down Arizona again because Arizona beat us in South Carolina's last College World Series appearance.
Way back when.
Kids were tiny. I had a 2-year-old and a newborn.
Way back.
Following that game, that'd be great because you're going to get the weekend off. That'll make for great afternoon viewing, by the way. I put a tweet out last night that get to my house and put the TV outside. I don't know if we're going to have storms on Friday or night, but you'll have the U.S. Open going. And we'll talk more about the U.S. Open tomorrow and Thursday because of what they're doing there with that course and how it's expected to play. But that's going to be a really great afternoon of sports there with Coastal Carolina and Arizona at 2 o'clock and the U.S. Open going on. The night game out there out in Omaha, Oregon State, the Pac-12 independent representative, taking on ACC team Louisville. That game will be set for 7 o'clock, and both of those games will be on Friday. Now, you move to the bracket, which the second half of the bracket, which starts on Saturday. It'll be UCLA, 47-16, taking on Murray State, and then again, I get it, Arkansas and LSU. That's how it was drawn up. I hate that the SEC teams end up in the same bracket. Now, that I don't mind as much for the reseeding. But let me go back here and just say, if you're reseeding this thing, if you were to reseed this thing, I believe it is Arkansas and LSU at 1 and 2. I believe it is Oregon State at 3 and UCLA at 4. And again, I think I don't mind that. I don't even mind making that fair in the way it would be. Yeah, reseeding. I mean, it's different than, say, the NCAA basketball tournament, if you will.
What makes it different from the NCAA basketball tournament when a quote-unquote Cinderella team moves through the bracket? Why is baseball different to you?
To me, because it's a one-off. You have to – and Murray State, I have to go back and check this to be 100% sure. Murray State, I believe, beat Vanderbilt 1 game. I believe they beat them in 1 game, but which I guess is kind of the same. But I don't know. The NCAA tournament bracket, the way it's set up, it feels like it is advantageous for the higher seeds. And we know baseball is a different game. You can run into a great pitcher. One team might have one great pitcher and you lose a game. But it feels like the way the NCAA basketball tournament is set up. That's why we see normally the higher seeds. And I think it's more of a big deal when Cinderella makes its run, even though, what is this? This is one of the, I guess it would be, I don't know how they exactly seeded. Actually, I believe Murray State would be like team 68 or 64 getting all the way to the NCAA tournament. I believe, if I'm thinking of how they did the brackets, where technically the worst team was in the best bracket.
So going back to your statements before, would you rather have Duke here or would you rather have Murray State here? Based on whether or not you like the Cinderellas being in the big show or not. Did Murray State do their due diligence or are they crashing the party?
From a fun standpoint, to answer your question, I like that Murray State's there. 8 teams, it gives you 1 Cinderella to pull for. It gives you several teams that are national title contenders, that are legit national title contenders. It gives me several teams, Arkansas, LSU, Oregon State, Coastal Carolina. I'm leaving one off of that group that I just had. But it feels like they're more of national title contenders. They're the teams that you want there. And then you got the Cinderella, the underdog as well.
Yeah, which we've already said. I wanted to the national landscape, Coastal is not going to be a name that casuals will know. Obviously, if you follow baseball, you know they recently won the World Series. But I wondered, does Coastal fall in that category for you?
Of
Cinderella?
No. I think when you've won a national championship, Butler lost Cinderella status not because they won a national championship, but because they got there the first year, and the second year they weren't a Cinderella anymore.
Correct.
So is there a basketball equivalent to what Coastal is? Are we talking like Gonzaga? Or are we talking Butler?
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga is that a good equivalent to them?
Yeah. Yep. And we'll talk with Kevin Schnall about this when we come back. Coastal Carolina head coach. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market, where you just heard me talk about this weekend, Father's Day weekend, College World Series weekend, some NBA Finals, maybe some NHL Finals. So much to watch, so much to enjoy, and the place to start your weekend is at Old Timey Meat Market. Now, Father's Day's coming up. Maybe besides just getting a great steak, a piece of chicken, or some salmon, maybe you actually want a brand new Traeger grill. And the Lexington store is your Traeger headquarters. If you want a Traeger grill or a Traeger smoker, you need to get over there today. Let me tell you, I got a smoker, and it is one of the best pieces of grilling equipment I have ever bought, the things you can do on that thing. So you need to stop by the Lexington store and visit the Traeger headquarters at Old Timey Meat Market. Trust me, Dad this weekend or Granddad or whomever the father is in the family, they would love to have a Traeger smoker, and you can even buy the wood pellets right there at the Lexington Old Timey Meat Market store. So stop by today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
I-77 northbound there at the Cooper River Bridge, mile marker 4, that is the Alexander's Bridge. There is an accident there. Again, that's I-77 northbound, mile marker 4. Also, Fernandina Road at St. Andrews and Clemson at Sparkleberry. Going to get in this pattern, the afternoon storms popping up, evening storms popping up. High today, 86. Tomorrow, 90. Thursday, 90 again with those chances for some afternoon or evening storms. Currently overcast, can't quite get that sun to break out. It's 71 on 107.5 The Game.
.33 on a Tuesday morning, heading into the College World Series on Friday, where our good buddy, or we're going to try and make him our good buddy, Kevin Schnall joins us, head coach for Coastal Carolina Baseball. And, Coach, let's just start with this. Congratulations. You go on the road to Auburn, and you sweep the Tigers down there. And just talk about being down there and the excitement there, winning and dogpiling. I didn't pay attention. I got to admit, I was celebrating with a former alumni, former pitcher for Coastal Carolina, Brett Blanks, and so I didn't see. Did you get in the dog pile?
No, absolutely not. I'm way too old to be doing that. You kidding me? But it was an awesome weekend. That's a tremendous place. I've never been down there. What a beautiful stadium. They had some great renovations. Their fans were awesome. Over 8,000 fans. I think they broke a record 2 days in a row. I think it's clear that it's so valuable to be that top 8 national seed. It doesn't assure you anything, but it is very valuable. It was a very tough venue to play in, but it shows you, though, that it just comes down to executing pitches. It doesn't matter where you're playing and how many fans you have. You just got to execute pitches and play the game, and we're fortunate that we did that at a very high level this weekend, and we're able to win 2 games.
What was the message to your team throughout the week, because of the fact that I know after the game you said, hey, we're not a Cinderella. Well, you're not, and we debated that a little bit in the previous segment, and we all agreed, because Coastal Carolina has won a national championship in baseball in 2016. You ran off the stats. We played it on Monday. You ran off a bunch of stats about how Coastal Carolina is not a Cinderella, but how did you address both going there and then address going into Game 2 with your team about just trying to win that game?
Well, I think it was like week 12 or 13 as a staff. We told the team that we were going to host a regional and we were going to win a regional. And we almost felt bad, like, wow, did we put too much pressure on them? And we kind of went back and like, listen, guys, this wasn't to put pressure on you. This is something that we truly believe. And when we won that regional, we went in the locker room and said, we're going to win a super regional now too. And there's a lot of humility and whatnot, but there's also a lot of confidence and belief. We've won 23 straight. We're 53-11. It's truly incredible, but it's not unbelievable. We're one of 8 teams still playing, and this team deserves to be in Omaha. And you talk about Cinderella. It's not Cinderella. I mean, this century, there's only 8 teams in the country that have been to the regionals more times than us. At the end of the day, we've got a program that's been as successful as any program in the entire country over these last 24, 25 years, and it's something that we're very proud of, and obviously we won a national championship in 2016.
Well, Coach, again, this is Preston. Congratulations on your on making another appearance, again, this time in the captain's chair instead of the co-captain's chair. I was struck by your post-game reflections, and maybe not sure that our audience were able to hear it, but this trip to Omaha is a little bit different for you. Obviously, you're the head coach, but there's some family issues. Would you mind sharing some of those things with our audience who may not have heard that?
Well, not issues. I don't want to make this about me, but, in 2015 and 2016, that year was a tough year. Our son had some health issues, very rare situation. He had a stroke, and then ultimately he had a total of 5 strokes. But, we were fortunate in 2016, that spring. The doctor down at MUSC finally figured out what was causing the strokes and, was able to rectify it. And, again, he's flourishing now. He's just finished his freshman year at Carolina Forest High School and doing great. But, we just remember that, our kids were young at the time, but we decided that they were going to stay home, during that trip to Omaha. We're out at Omaha for 15 days when we won the national championship. And now that my son's getting older, we constantly talk about what Omaha was like and trying to get back to Omaha and how fired up, he is to want to try to get back out there. And this team this year now afforded him that opportunity.
You were 3 days in. You clinched on Saturday, so you had Sunday and Monday, and you have today. How is it different being the head coach now, and maybe some of the side things that you have to do, as opposed to being the assistant coach and maybe focusing on a particular position or the pitchers or one particular thing? How is it different so far you've noticed in these first 2 games, being the head coach and now having to change maybe, I don't want to say your philosophy, but just how you handle things?
Well, I get to talk to you guys.
That's true. That's a good point.
Right?
Big privilege.
Coach, I don't know if that's a privilege or a problem. I'm not sure how that works for you. But we appreciate
that's the difference. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. But, I mean, that's the biggest difference is, they want to, I'm the one behind the mic, and they want to recognize me. But really, this is way bigger than Kevin Schnall. I mean, I'm really lucky to have been able to surround myself with an elite coaching staff, a coaching staff that would rival any coaching staff in the entire country. And I'm fortunate to share a dugout with those guys, and they make me look really good.
Well, Coach, you talk about the idea of execution. It doesn't matter where, when, how, who. How do you preach that to your team as you inevitably move into a bigger stage?
Well, it comes back to our daily process and the way we prepare. I don't feel like there's another team in the country that practices at the level that we practice at. There's teams that probably practice similar, but not harder. And we pride ourselves on our attention to detail every single day. We pride ourselves on, our grit and our grind, and that's not going to go away. But there's things that we feel like, we do every single day at a very high level that separates us, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Coach Kevin Schnall joining us with Coastal Carolina Baseball as he gets set to take his team out there, and you will be the opening game, 2 o'clock on Friday against Arizona. What do you remember about that particular 3-game series? Y'all lost in the opening game, and then you rallied, winning back-to-back games. And I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say the game winning, the championship game, Game 3, I thought it was a little bit unfair. Y'all had to play there's been so much rain back then. Y'all had to play an early game to win the national championship. Maybe you didn't get the environment. But what do you remember about that 3-game series that you will use this week?
Well, I'm not going to use anything really this week from that. What do I remember? I mean, really, that team was the epitome of it doesn't matter who we're playing. It's all about how we're playing. That team, just showed up every single day, and all they worried about was competing against themselves and competing against the ball. And that's the same message that we use today. Like, it doesn't matter who's in the other dugout. It comes down to us executing our plan, us competing against ourselves, and us competing against the ball. And if we do that, the rest will take care of itself. I mean, we've won 23 straight. We're 53-11. We can't be any more confident than we are.
Going back to some of your players, how do you handle the younger guys? How do you handle the older guys and preparing them for this moment? What's your philosophy on taking your guys to the biggest stages? It's as simple as, hey, guys, as you just said, we got this long winning streak. We've won 53 games. We went on the road and won a regional. It's the same. Baseball's the same game, just a different park, or do you do something psychology-wise that's a little bit different?
I really don't. Nope. 60 feet, 6 inches, 90 feet around. Obviously, it's a bigger stage, but it just comes down to simply executing on both sides of the ball. and that's the focus. I mean, we're going to practice at a very high level today, and we're going to do some things that we didn't execute as well as maybe we would have liked this past weekend. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it. We're going to review it. We're going to rep it. And we're going to do the same thing tomorrow, and then we're going to get on a plane, and we're going to head to Omaha, and then we're going to have a great 50-minute workout on Thursday morning in Omaha and get ourselves prepared to play for Friday. And when we go out there Friday, yes, it's a bigger stage, but I want to say about 60% of this roster, I know it's different, it is, but about 60% of this roster, we played Creighton last year in 2 midweek games, in the stadium. So they have some familiarity with the stadium, with the area, so I don't feel like they're going to be, in total awe, even though it is a different stage. I get it. When we show up tomorrow, it's going to be a different buzz, a different energy level. But again, we have guys on our team that have been in the batter's box in that stadium already, so I think that is going to be an advantage.
Well, Coach, appreciate you sharing and appreciate you being authentic and transparent. So now we have to ask a really serious question here. Do you consider The Sandlot a top 3 or 5 baseball movie?
The Natural's always my number one, but people don't realize is the one actor, Thomas Gyrie, I think that's his name. He went to my high school. He was a freshman when I was a senior. So that's the one thing I got, a little nugget I have on The Sandlot. But listen, I the last movie I watched was Die Hard, Bruce Willis. I don't have much time for movies, I can tell you that.
Coach, that does not surprise me at all. That is 100% on the ball. Appreciate you, man.
You got me looking up to see who Tom, is that's Scotty Smalls. So Smalls.
Yes, with the black eye. Yep.
Okay, good deal. Well, Coach, we know you got to get ready. We really appreciate you taking time. Good luck. We'll be following you closely. We hope to be speaking with you again here in a few weeks about winning a national championship and really being able to celebrate. But phenomenal weekend on the Plains. I know you've turned your attention completely to Omaha, and we do wish you the best of luck.
Thanks so much. Hopefully this whole state's wearing teal this week.
It's a good-looking hat. I know you've seen it. That white and teal hat with Omaha is that is a good-looking hat.
Please go on and buy that.
Yes, sir. We'll promote that and put that
All
out
right,
there.
guys.
Take care, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Coach Kevin Schnall with Coastal Carolina. Best of wishes to them this weekend as they head out to Omaha. And again, 2 o'clock on Friday against Arizona. We'll come back and we'll wrap it up. You're listening to the early game.
it's easy when you play with a bunch of rejects and fat kids, Rodriguez.
Shut your mouth, Phillips.
What'd you say, crap face? I said you shouldn't even be allowed to touch a baseball. Except for Rodriguez, you're all an insult to the game. Come on! We'll take you on right here, right now! Come on! Yeah. Right now! Right now! We plan a real Diamond Porter. You ain't good enough to lick the dirt off our cleats. Watch it, jerk. Shut up, idiot. Moron! Scab eater. Butt sniffer. Pus licker. Fart smeller. You eat dog crap for breakfast, geek. You mix your weeds with your mama's toe jam. Yeah! You bob for apples in the toilet, and you like it. You play ball like a girl.
How many times did 803-404-6100, how many times did you use that line? Because that's for us, for Preston and I, 93, that's about 11 years old, 12 years old maybe, but 11, 12. And at that point in my life, I was big into baseball. And the reaction there that comes in the Sandlot when he accuses him of playing ball like a girl, I think we were, that was something that probably people used a little bit more.
Yeah. That's one of be one of the interesting things about watching these movies. You're going to see how languages change, how things have changed as far as the words that you say, the insults that you might use, the old fart sniffer. I don't know if that one's still being thrown around in the playgrounds anymore, but that was an old classic. But yeah, we'll be doing a summer series of movies. Watching this year, we'll be watching some of your family-friendly sports movies from the 90s, especially during this golden age. Like you said, that was in 93. There's a bevy of them that was released. I just ran off a couple of, you had Angel is in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year, Little Giants, Mighty Ducks, whatever the case. So we're going to go run through these, and what we'll do is we introduce them at the beginning of the week. We'll talk a little bit about them, and then by the end of the week, we'll review them. And so we'll have these conversations. It's an opportunity for you to watch movies with you, by yourself, rewatch a movie, watch it with your family. If you want to get the group together to watch something as a group, these are some fun activities, and we can talk about them as a show. One other discussion I think that's going to break out that could be generational is the Bad News Bears film. I'm just looking because you've got a almost a 30-year difference in the movies. And who was it? Was JC that brought this up? And I think probably most people would side with the 1976 Walter Matthau.
Tatum O'Neal and Walter Matthau.
Yeah, yep. over Billy Bob Thornton, and I don't know who else he had in the
was it Michael Keaton? No. Greg Kinnear. Was he the other coach? Perhaps.
I got right here on IMBD. Yeah, you're right. Greg Kinnear. I'm looking to see if there was any other younger kids that have gone on to become stars. But yeah, so the Bad News Bears, a little out of our time frame that we're doing this week, but apparently is a movie that maybe we have to go back and review a little bit to see Walter Matthau in one of is that probably one of his prized roles? It's up there, isn't it?
I would sure think so. Yeah, and it was definitely. Now you could look back at it a little controversial in some areas, and
well, we were saying that was Sandlot we just played might be.
Yeah.
The other part of that is what some of people have weighed in on different scenes so far this morning. A couple people kind of went with
no spoilers.
Listen, we're 32 years into this thing here, but obviously was it a fair scene or what were they on the
Ferris wheel,
the roller coaster or whatever? Yeah, a lot of scenes from that movie. So we'll discuss later on in the week. But it's been a fun show, a lot of fun. Thank you to J.C. Sherbert from thebigspur.com and the Chief Sports Network. Thank you, of course, to Coach Kevin Schnall with Coastal Carolina Baseball as they get ready. And fun day talking defensive football.
Yes, sir. We have some more talking season back tomorrow.
We will do that. Again, appreciate everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Y'all have a great rest of the day.